Welcome to episode number 292 of Goulet Q&A, where fountain pens are still a thing. I'm Brian Goulet here from gouletpens.com. And in this episode, I'm going to be talking about the good ideas to deepen the enjoyment of pens that you already own, loose leaf fountain pen friendly paper for printing your own lines, recommendation for resources for researching vintage pens, what a puzzle themed pen that I design would look like, and pens that I use that we don't sell here. Plus, I talk about some new stuff that we have, a little bit of my own adventures in my life, and I'm going to be spotlighting the brand new TWSBI Eco Amazonite, which just came out. And I'm going to show it and compare it to some other colors. So it should be fun, but let's kick it off with some feedback, shall we? All right, first one we have is from Chris. All right, very quick company updates. You know, we're like mid-holidays here, very busy, but team's doing great, staying on top of things. So thank you for being flexible and patient there. We do have a couple of videos that we've gotten out recently. So we got a must-have blue inks part 2, a little bit sillier video, a little lighthearted, but I did a part 1 a couple of weeks back, which was all pretty straight-laced conventional inks. These ones are the non-conventionals, the ones with interesting properties, shimmers and sheens and all kinds of stuff. So if you're interested in that, go check it out. I tried to mix up really popular ones with ones that are less popular. So that should be fun. It's a short video too. And then Janaea got a just-in video out with some newer stuff that we have. There's so much new stuff coming right now. This is like the time when every manufacturer is like trying to get stuff out for the holidays. So lots of fun things going on right now, and it's a good time in the fountain pen world. Without further ado, let's talk about some new stuff. All right, first off, we have a new Benu Euphoria Goulet exclusive. This is part of our refreshments collection, so it's like very drink themed. And this one is Lavender Lemonade. Really interesting. I know it's not going to be for everybody because the color is a little more out there, but it's a purple and a yellow. You guessed, lavender and lemonade. Very vibrant, lots of interesting, mix of the colors, but, fairly distinct kind of colors. It's not all swirled in between the two. It's fairly transitional. I think it looks really good though. We got that in fine through broad plus flex nibs now. So, Benu now has more flex nibs, steel flex nibs available on their standard pens. And so that's something we have now on all of our exclusives that we're coming out with. So that's pretty cool. It's $157. You can go check that out if you're interested. We have a bunch of other really cool looking pens there too. And then the one that's going to be the spotlight for today, the TWSBI Eco Amazonite. I keep wanting to say Amazon, like amazing, but it's Amazonite. So it's a different color than if you're familiar with the Lamy Amazonite, the crystal ink. Very different color than that, but still really cool. First TWSBI with a swirl in its resin. So I'll show you that more close up. It's $35. And it literally, I think, is launching when this video is launching, same day. So get on that. We have, I feel like one of those like car salesmen or like mattress salesmen that's like, our mistake is your gain. But yeah, we have a mistake that happened from the factory, from Jinhao. We got the Shark pens, which are normally a hooded nib that's extra fine. They just showed up with number 5 medium nibs. So we have those now. So you can check those out. The body is still the same, basically identical pen, but the nib is going to be a little bit different. Still writes pretty decent, surprisingly, but for $4, it's like hard to go wrong. So we're not going to be reordering these. So, if you really like these, go ahead and pick up as many as you want. I don't know. We may discount them at some point in the future because we ended up getting way more than we planned because we planned on 0. But anyway, so it's kind of interesting little fun tidbit that happens sometimes. And, we have those. And then we have the Esterbrook Esty Jurassic. So very cool looking resin, but the more interesting part about this particular pen is they have a Fude nib on it. So this is done from Josh Lax, and it's a very interesting nib, very niche. This will not be for everybody. So doing the nib look on this one was very interesting because essentially it looks like the nib is bent. So it's really good for if you're doing artwork and you want to get like really broad, really flat, kind of wide swaths of ink. Otherwise, you just hold it up a little bit and it's going to write more like a conventional kind of like medium nib. So you can write, and then if you flip it upside down, it's going to write, fairly well upside down too, a little finer line. So for conventional writing, it's not going to be for everybody. But if you're into artwork or mixed media stuff, you may be interested in this. I would assume that most of you, if you already know what a Fude nib is, you're going to know it. And if you're not, you're going to be like, what the heck is this thing? You don't need to worry about it too much. So if you don't already know about it, then it's cool to be aware of it, but it's probably not something that you're going to need to use a lot yourself. But anyway, it's kind of interesting. Not a lot of Fude nibs out there coming from, like manufacturers, basically. It's usually something that has to be customized, like kind of like it was in this case by Josh, but still kind of available mainstream somewhat through Esterbrook. So anyway, that's available. You can check that out. And then we have some new exclusives as well from Conklin. This is their 1898. It's a bigger pen, kind of like the All-American, if you're familiar with that model, but a little fancier, a little more ornamentation with that center band and whatnot. Some really gorgeous resins that we have on there. There's 3 colors: Mediterranean Sea, Pato Lake, and Mariana Trench. So $182 for these ones. Honestly, we were going to launch them, spread them out over more expanded time frame, but they were all ready at the same time. And it was like, well, it's the holiday season, so let's just go for it. So really beautiful colors, really interesting materials. So you can check those ones out. And we have a couple of pretty inks to show. Some Wearing Gold, a little princess. This is a lavender with a silver and gold shimmer. I'll be honest with you, this isn't normally my color, but this looks really awesome. So I don't know. We'll see how that does. And then Endless Alchemy has a couple of colors, 3 colors actually, not a couple, because that's 2. 3. So that's a few, several, not several. Several feels like more than 3. This is a big debate in the Goulet family household. Is a couple just 2, or can it be 3 or 4? I don't know. Let me know what you think. I didn't intend to spark this debate, but I will say we talk about it a lot with our kids. And surprisingly, Rachel and Joseph, they're the more kind of straight-laced ones, the rule followers. They're much more flexible on the couple being 2, like more than 2. It can be more than that. But me and Ellie, we're a little more like, creative free spirit ones. We're the ones that are more like, no, a couple needs to be 2. Like that's really kind of what it is. But then I'm inconsistent with it. I'll ask for a couple, but I really just, I don't know. How strict are you on that? And what do you think? But let's get back to the topic at hand. Endless Alchemy. We have Molten Bronze. This kind of conventional brown color looks really nice, but it's nothing crazy going on with it. So if you like non-crazy properties, it seems like a lot of what we carry these days has shimmer and shing. So this one's a little more conventional. But if you like the crazy stuff, check out Raven Blue. This is a dark blue with a copper sheen. Pretty cool. You don't often see this. Normally a dark blue, you see a red sheen. But a copper sheen, kind of interesting. No idea how they do that, but it looks pretty neat. And then it's a really dark blue too. And then Golden Sunburst. So this is an orange, pretty vibrant orange with a gold shimmer to it. So really looking nice too. So interesting colors coming from Endless. And those bottles are crazy and they always freak me out because they start rolling around when you are filling from it. But you got to use the little cork thing, the little thing to hold it in place. If you're just filling and rolling around, it can really mess with your head. But anyway, let's get into the questions this week, shall we? Okay, Hobby Thered Panda. Hope I said that right. Any good ideas to deepen the enjoyment of pens you already own? So I like this question because yes, we have new products all the time. It's a very excitable hobby. New things are always flashy and fun, and it's holiday season and it's, everybody's in a buying mood. So yes, can you be content with what you already have? Especially if it's something that maybe you haven't been as content with, or you have pens that have been sitting there for a while. How do you rekindle some of that love or find deeper enjoyment with what you already have, which I think is great. Always into rediscovering, stuff you already have. So I gave it some thought. So I always think that's good to enjoy what you have. I would say one way you can try it is commit to the pen. Pick your pen, only use that pen exclusively for a week or a couple weeks, maybe a month. I don't know, whatever you feel is right. Sometimes just being forced to use it, you will learn to love it, or you'll find out at least where it will shine. Maybe not in every form of writing in every way that you want to use it, but you may find that for certain, if it's longer journaling or just quicker writing and stuff like that, maybe it's better in some ways than others. And you would not discover that if you just didn't use the pen more exclusively. So that could be something interesting that you could try out. Doesn't cost anything. Just pulling it back out. If a pen that's sitting there for a while, sometimes you're it's not as excited about that one as maybe I am about those other ones that I know I use and love more. But you might have a pen that's been sitting there for just years and not being used for whatever reason. just pull it back out again and try inking it up if you haven't used it in a while. Maybe your tastes have changed. Maybe you thought like, oh, this nib, I didn't like this nib, or I didn't like the way that the grip felt or whatever, but you may find that like when you pick it back up, like, oh, it's actually not as bad as I remember it. Or, a pen that you just have passed over, but you're like, wow, I used to really like writing with this pen. And now that I'm just picking it up again, I like it again. So, this is more for people that probably have like a lot of pens and it's easy to kind of pass over some of them repeatedly. Not that I would know about that. But that's one tactic that you can try. Let's see here. Give it a deep clean or a disassembly. This will depend on the pen, obviously. But I always find that when I really thoroughly clean out a pen, which I have to do a lot because I never clean my pens in a timely manner. It's always usually like a deep cleaning is needed by the time I get to it. But the thing that I do like about that is by taking the pens apart, cleaning it more thoroughly, being patient with it, I do appreciate more the engineering behind it, the quirks of how it writes, how it works, and just the TLC that I give it. If it's been sitting there for a while, I might throw a little silicone grease on the threads. I might, kind of give it a little bit of more regular maintenance, and it may give it some second life again. So sometimes just that alone, spending more time cleaning it, can get it ready and get you eager to use it again. If you got a pen that you have been using, like regular inks or something like that, maybe you have some inks that you haven't used quite as often either, try mixing it up. Pull some inks that you haven't used as much, or maybe haven't used as much with the particular pen that you're trying to like rekindle your pen love with, and just try it out. Even if it's a color that you're like, no, I got this sample and it's gross and whatever, you never know. Try it in that pen. It may be the nib size, if it's broader, maybe the ink looks a little different when it's put down wetter or finer or whatever. Who knows? It could be that the properties of that ink, maybe if the pen felt a little dry and you didn't like it with inks, but then you have some other inks that you've used that maybe write a little wetter, and you try that wetter ink in your dry writing pen and you're like, oh, this feels totally different now. I can't tell you the number of times that's happened for me. Just the pen ink pairing can make such a big difference. And then paper too, the paper thrown in the mix, there's like that trifecta of pen, ink, and paper. You could rediscover a love for a pen that wasn't actually maybe the pen's issue, but maybe you just like it with a different pairing. So mixing things up a little bit, trying some different combinations out can often rekindle some love for it. This is a more obscure one, but maybe try filling the pen differently if that's an option. So if you've always used it with a converter, maybe try refilling a cartridge, maybe try eyedropper converting it. Sometimes just mixing it up, doing it in a different way may make it more interesting to you. I don't know. This one's a little more obscure, but I was reaching. There you go. Take it or leave it. This one is going to be a little more of a deep cut. Okay. So this is if you're, a little more adventurous, or if you're like, I know I don't like using this pen. I need to like alter it or modify it to maybe try liking it. You can try tweaking or tuning that nib. Maybe not so much for newbies, or maybe it's like, if you have a pen that you already don't like and you're like, well, I might as well try smoothing it out with some micro mesh because I already don't like using it anyway. And what do I have to lose? So, we got our tuning set, cleaning and tuning set, but our tuning set, we got Mylar, micro mesh, brass sheet, we got loop. So ways that you can kind of check out that nib. Maybe it just wasn't aligned properly and that's why it didn't write like you thought. You can try tuning and tweaking it yourself. You might be able to kind of fine tune it and get it more to your liking. And of course, if you're not fully like comfortable with that, or you try it and it doesn't quite work, but you really want to like the pen, you want to use it, it might be worth, getting it fixed by a pro, getting a nib professional who can tune it or tweak it, or maybe even alter it. If you're like, yeah, I just don't like this broad, it's just too broad. But you know what? A finer cursive italic might be interesting, so maybe somebody could grind down that broad to be a more cursive italic. Yeah, you're kind of like reinvesting into the pen. So, the parameters of the question didn't say not spend any money. It just said, with what you already have, you're altering what you already have by doing that. But it may be that, you would actually use the pen more if you get the nib more to your liking, or if you just change up the nib with a different grind or something. And then the last one, we've talked a lot about TWSBIs and swapping grips and nibs and stuff. You could always Franken-pen it, if you've got a couple different pens, or maybe like the nib sizes, is similar to other pens that you have in your collection. You can just try swapping some parts out and maybe you'll like that arrangement better. Maybe it'll just, give you something to do to enjoy those pens more, but you can try swapping out those parts and maybe that gives you some more life and enjoyment out of the pens. So whole bunch of different ideas there, but would love to know, any of you in the comments, if you have things that you've done that have rekindled sort of your love for your fountain pen use, especially ones that have been sitting around for a while. Please share, because I think that's something, especially if we're, especially right now, it's like if it's holiday time and you're like, I'm waiting, maybe I'll get some gifts. I'm not sure. I'm not buying anything right now, but I want to freshen things up a little bit. Any of these ideas could be good just to kind of mix it up. So there you go. Hope that was helpful. All right, next up, we got one. This is from Carl Shoechuck. Question: I take a ton of notes in school and cannot find a paper or ruling combo that fits my extremely specific and picky needs. Well, at least you're self-aware of that. You're in the right hobby. Is it possible to buy loose leaf fountain pen paper and print my own ruling on it? So I'm assuming like blank sheets. If so, does the type of printer matter, inkjet or laser? I dream of a day that 7mm dot grid is a widely available option. Yes, you're dreaming. That is not a widely available option. But I have some ideas here, some things to talk about. So I'm glad you mentioned the inkjet versus laser, because pretty much if you're looking to go this route of like printing your own, the most economical and practical thing is going to be using printer paper. You can buy it by the ream or by the box, the case, whatever. If you're really going through it, that's going to be by far the most economical way, especially, I don't know where you're located, but if you're in the US, you really can't get loose leaf fountain pen paper. It's just not a thing. But you can get plenty of printer paper. Now, there is a big difference between inkjet paper and laser paper. What you're going to want is the laser paper. Now, if you're printing lines on it, I mean, you can probably print on both papers with both types of printer, but generally speaking, inkjet printers are going to perform the best with inkjet paper, right? So inkjet ink is a little more liquid. It is meant to absorb into the paper a little bit more. So inkjet paper is a little bit more absorbent, which means it's not going to be as good for fountain pens unless you want a quick dry time and you're okay with a little more spread and feathering and stuff. But it's more ideal for fountain pen use to use laser paper. So if you have a laser printer, that will pair best with a laser paper. But I mean, I'm sure you can print on regular inkjet paper with a laser printer. It's just maybe won't be as crisp and stuff, because laser printers, they're using toner, which is going to be heated up and then basically like adhered on top of the paper. It's not absorbing in. So that's why generally laser paper is smoother, not as absorbent, which just happens to work better with fountain pens. So that's generally the best. This is one of those things where like the more you spend, generally you are going to get a little bit better quality. It's not necessarily about the thickness, and the thicker is not always better. But something in like the 120 pound range, at least in the US, that's what it is. That ends up being like 90 to 100 gram kind of thing. I forget what the exact number is, but you want 100 to 120 pound paper will be pretty good in terms of thickness. And if you can find anything like premium laser paper, that's going to be the smoother and the more coated stuff that is going to perform even better. You're going to get more shading. Your lines are going to look a little tighter. If there's any type of sheen or shimmer or anything like that, it's going to pop more on the premium paper as opposed to just the standard laser paper. But all laser paper is going to perform better than pretty much any inkjet paper. So that's what I would go looking for. Just, it's kind of annoying because you basically can't buy this paper except by the ream, so you're probably going to end up paying for a good premium paper, probably $25, $30, $35 for a ream. But a ream is 500 sheets. That's a good amount of paper in like an A4 size. It's going to be blank paper. It's going to be plain. You're going to have to hole punch it yourself if you want it hole punched. But then you can print whatever type of ruling on it that you want. And then you said you dream of a day 7mm dot grid is a widely available option. Well, it's not widely available really at all. We had to come up with it. We got this feedback previously and did a 7mm ruling notebook. It's an exclusive that we have. It's from Endless. We have the Endless leather, journal that is $60, and it comes with the notebook that's got the 7mm dot ruling on it. But you can get the notebook separately. It's $18. It's 7mm. It's A5 size though. So I don't know if that's going to be as ideal. It sounds like you're maybe tearing through some paper in school. So I don't know if that'll be ideal, again, for one notebook versus like a ream of paper. The ream of paper is going to be the more economical way to go. But the notebook is like already packaged and it's already like its own thing. So it's kind of serving a different purpose. But that's the only 7mm dot grid that we've basically ever seen. So I don't know that it'll be more widely available unless everybody starts clamoring for it. But there you go. That should set you up well. So hope that goes well. If you find a really good laser paper, post it in the comments. That way other people can see. All right. I've had good luck with HP laser paper. I can't remember. They've changed names and stuff over the time, but they used to have a really good 32-pound laser paper. I don't know if they still have it. Or no, they used to have a really good 28-pound, which was like a 90 gram. I think they discontinued that years ago, though. So their 32-pound stuff is pretty good. I think you'll be happy with that. Nicole Murtaugh asks, what resources do you use to research vintage pens? I will fully disclaim here, I am not the vintage pen expert, which means anytime I get a vintage pen questions, I have to research it. But I also don't do it all that often. So it's one of those things that like, it's going to be highly dependent on which type of vintage pens you're looking at, because they get uber specific. It could be by brand. It could be by year, by country of origin. So I find, more like forum type resources to be helpful. Fountain Pen Network is an oldie but goodie. It has lots. I mean, there's so much of everything on there. It's been around for like 20 years, maybe more. So there's a lot of stuff on there. If you're looking for specific, vintage models or companies, brands, you can do a search for it on there and see what's up. I think they might even have sub forums. I haven't been on there in a while, but they might have sub forums for specific vintage, pens or vintage brands. A lot of very knowledgeable people on there. I think there's also a FPN Facebook group as well. They might have some information in there. Generally with FPN, you're going to get more vintage folks than you would just on like, a modern, like a retailer that specializes in modern stuff. It's going to be mostly people that are buying modern pens and maybe not as much of the vintage. So, you can check that out. But really the go-to place for me to get like specific information, especially if it's a little more general information about like pen parts or how they're made or history or anything like that. Richard Binder's website, richardspens.com. It's a very in-depth resource. He's got all kinds of good information about nibs, about different filling mechanisms and stuff, all kinds of vintage pen history and good like glossary and all that stuff. He's put a lot of time into building that custom site, and it's a phenomenal resource for the vintage pen community, especially, but just pen community in general. If any of you out there know of more specific resources that are really good for vintage pens, please comment about it. This is an area where I don't have a huge strength, but I would like to learn, and see what you all know. I mean, sometimes, people are into both vintage and modern. I'm more of a modern guy. So I dabble in vintage mostly because I like to know for historical reference, but I am not the one to ask about a lot of vintage stuff, but I would like to be more knowledgeable and be a better resource. All right, next question. This is from A. Fongin Pens. You've invented a pen that is also a puzzle. What is it like? Well, this is an interesting question. I'm not a pen inventor, but I do love puzzles. So it's going to be very restricted by the barrel shape, and you can't have anything go through it because it's got to have ink in the middle. Excuse me. It's got to have ink in the middle. So, I think the most logical thing for me that's like a tube-shaped puzzle is what's called a slide puzzle. It's not my favorite type of puzzle, but it would be really simple essentially to convert this into a pen. It could be interesting. You could do it either by like color bands and you have to like mix it up and then get the colors back to where they are, or you could do more like a Klotsky style where it's like you have the individual like numbers or letters or something like that. Or maybe it's like a picture of a puzzle and you kind of mix it all up, just like you have like those, those wooden like tablets and it's missing one block and you have to slide everything else around. You could do that in a circular form and it would be kind of interesting. So, it might be a little bit annoying to slide the things around. I don't know how you would slide those around without having them like fall out. That would be interesting, but I'm sure it could be engineered. If they have the slide puzzle, I mean, that's kind of how that's designed too. So I don't know. That's a thought. For me, that would be the most feasible, logical thing to come up with on a pen itself. But honestly, the reason I took this question is I think it would be more fun to come up with a puzzle box for the pen. Like the case would be a puzzle box. That would be kind of cool, especially if like the pen's in there and you're trying to get it out and you have to like figure out how to get to your pen. I think that would be really cool. And I wanted to show you all a puzzle box that I have because I I went to Japan years ago, and they had these puzzle boxes. The company called Hakone Maruyama. They have a website that's really cool. We'll try to link to it. I have no official affiliation with them, but I got to see their operation in Japan. It was so cool. As a woodworker, I was just in heaven. So I haven't tried making any of these puzzles myself. It's pretty complicated, but I have this one that's really cool. So I just wanted to show you because I think it would be kind of neat. Just an example. This is like I believe it's a 7 step box that I have. So yeah, let's check it out. All right. So this is super cool. This is literally, these are all little pieces of wood. So what they do when they make these up, this has nothing to do with the puzzle part, but it's just really cool to see the patterns. They essentially make these, they cut small pieces of wood into like long rods. They end up gluing all of them together into these like square rod to make this pattern, or hexagonal, whatever it is that the design of the box is meant to be. And then what they do is they take those rods, stand them on end, and they like shave it through a plane and get these very kind of fine shavings. And then they adhere that onto the box in a pattern. So this box itself has all kinds of patterns on it. This is part of the artistry and the craftsmanship that goes into it, which just blows my mind. But what's also really cool is that it is a puzzle box. So this one in particular is multi-step, and we're going to see if I can remember how to do this. I did have to practice before I turned the camera on. So let's see here. I have to slide part of it over. Yeah, okay. So that slides over, which unlocks that, and I slide that down, and I think I have to slide it over more, slide it down again. Okay, and then what that does is allows this part to slide, but I can only slide it but so far. That part then unlocks this to be able to unlock, go down, unlock again, slide down, then I can slide off the whole thing. So I don't know. I would say it's for security, but honestly, you could just take a hammer to this thing and get to the pen if you really wanted to. But I don't know. It's kind of neat. It's a little more of a novelty, I guess. Let's see if I can get it all back together. There we go. Boom. And they make some, I saw some there that they did that are like 20 plus steps on it. And it's crazy. You got to turn around so many times. Super cool. But just imagine this slightly longer, and then whatever style of pen you end up designing in it, it doesn't even have to be that much longer. Maybe you can even fit that in there diagonally. I don't know. But, a box like this, I could see this being really fun incorporated into a pen. So that's why I took this question. Honestly, I just wanted to play with this box. So I thought that was kind of fun, but there you go. That's what I got. That's a puzzle I would design. All right, last question we have here. This is from Joey Chang. Do you use pens other than the ones you carry? It's a great question. We carry plenty of pens, so I really could never use anything else and still have more pens that I could possibly practically use, right? Granted, I do this for a living, and so I reference pens a lot. I'm using them for all kinds of things, not just writing, but showing them off as I'm doing in this video. So yeah, do I use them other than the ones that we carry? Well, primarily I'm focusing on the ones we carry because, that makes sense, right? That's my business. That's what makes the most sense for me to be knowledgeable of and have the most experience of, so that when I shoot videos like this, I can have experience and, like every nib that we carry that's new, I do with the Nib Nook. I've been doing that for a very long time now, 12 years, 13. No, when did we start doing that? 12 years ago, I think it was. 13, I don't know, whatever. It's been a long time. Every nib that we have on the site I've written with. So, things like that. Yeah, I'm going to spend time on that stuff first. But, there are other pens made out there, of course. So there's a couple of different ones that I kind of categorized, I guess. I don't know. I just felt like I should group them together. So I don't use pens that we don't carry as often, obviously, because I'm trying to use the ones that we carry most. So ones that we don't carry that I will use kind of fall into one of these groups. Okay, so like vintage pens, pens that no one carries anymore because they're just not made. I don't use these a ton except a few gems like the Pilot M90. I just love that pen. So I will use those every now and then. There are ones that we used to carry, but are not around anymore. Either it's like a special edition model or limited edition thing, or it's a model that was discontinued from the manufacturer, but I like it, so I still might want to use it. I'm not trying to, I was gonna say like, there could be like that, or maybe like a nib that was only available on a particular type of pen and it's not there anymore, but I like the nib. That might be the case. Or if I'm just trying to flex, I'll do that a lot with like special edition, like Lamies and TWSBIs and stuff. Like I might be doing here in a minute with the TWSBIs. I just like to have all the versions and pull them out and show them and stuff like that. So I don't know. It depends what you consider, using the pens. Is showing them off in a video using them? I would say yes, though it's not writing with them. So anyway, I'll still write with them sometimes too. So that's one, use for them, pens that we used to carry but don't anymore. Another one is like product samples or maybe artist proofs or something that could be from a new brand maybe that we don't carry that we're testing out. Most of those I'm not going to end up carrying because we are kind of picky and, that kind of thing. And a lot of times, we're trying to build a relationship, especially if it's like a newer manufacturer. They may not be ready, to sell through retailers, but they want feedback on it. So, I'll try to do that kind of stuff when I can. So I'll write with that. I'm really never showing that kind of stuff on video, partly because stuff that's like artist proof, early stage stuff, it might change in development. It may not be available for a long time. It might be, not public knowledge that it exists. So I'm never sharing that kind of stuff, but I do play with that stuff from time to time, which is always fun. And so there's that kind of stuff. Or it might just be, stuff that is from existing brands, but it's a sample I'm getting ahead of time. That's also something I'm really not sharing very publicly, but that definitely happens. Another category, this is like known brands with pens that may have never been brought to production or maybe had a change, from its final version. So these are like more one-offs. I'll rarely show these because it does get kind of confusing, especially if it's like kind of close to the version that came out. But this does happen from time to time, and I may still use those pens every so often. Most of the time I'm using those for reference, especially if like there's a variation change that happened and there's like some manufacturing reason for it. I like to be knowledgeable of that. That way, as our team, we're talking and trying to design new things, new exclusives, I can reference like, oh, well, they used to do the clip like this, but then remember they had that issue with the thing, so they changed it, but this was the original clip. If you like the style, we can reference it. So in that way, I will use, pens that we're not carrying. And then the last group that I have is basically, what you would standard think with this question, like current products, current brands that we don't carry. Just they're available everywhere else. We just don't carry them. So I have some, like Montblanc is a classic example. We can't sell through Montblanc because they want a physical store. So we don't have it. And that's just until they change their policy, it's not going to change. So, those I will use, like some Montblanc 149, for example, like it's good for me to know what that pen is because we do get asked about it from time to time. And there's kind of iconic pens that may be out there that it's just good to know what they are. And so I will use those, but not like carrying them around every day for a long time because I need to get kind of basic gist of those, and then once I do, I'm pretty good. And I may reference it every now and then, but I'm kind of just holding on to it to reference. So everything kind of falls into those categories. So there you go. Hope that was entertaining to you. Let's do a pen spotlight now. I want to show you this TWSBI Amazonite. All right, so if you're familiar with the Eco, it's an Eco, right? Like the pen itself fundamentally is not any different. It's another color. But what's cool about the Amazonite is TWSBI's not done a multicolored resin like this, like a variegated color. It's not super drastic. Like they didn't go crazy with it. So it's kind of like an alabaster green with some white and some darker green swirls in here. Now I will say this is just this one pen. Each one is going to look a little bit different. So, the pattern itself will be a little bit different, but you also might get some that have more green. You might get some that have more white. I wouldn't expect it to be wildly different, but they're all going to be slightly different, which is, kind of neat because your pen is going to be yours. But also it's like, if you're hoping to get something that looks very, very specific, you might get something different. So I apologize if that happens, but that's kind of the luck of the draw with these types of pens. But it looks really kind of similar to some other colors of Ecos. Mostly why I wanted to show you these is because I have variations of other Ecos that you may or may not have or have seen, and I wanted to show you how they compare. So here's a whole tray of other Ecos and Eco teas that they've come out with over the years. So at least want to go through them, show you what they look like by comparison. So first one I have here on the left, this is Sky Blue. definitely the Amazonite. Amazonite I think of more of a green color anyway. So, but I did include some light blues because, they've had some of the names of other ones on here, like mint blue, kind of looks a little more green. So I thought it would be good to show some kind of pastel-y blues in here too. Anyway, there's sky blue next to the Amazonite. All right, this one here, this is Persian green. So this is one that came out, I think, earlier this year. Definitely a more distinctly green, and you can really tell the difference with the swirl pattern in there on that variegation, variegated. I think variegated is right, but that sounds weird as I'm saying it. So I don't know. Tell me if I'm right or wrong. Anyway, Persian green, a little darker, definitely more flat, but yep, there's that. Now, these two next ones I think look the closest. So this one right here, this is jade. It does not glow in the dark. It looks like it should, but it doesn't. It's definitely more of like a translucent-ish. It like hints at being translucent. It's not really, but it's got that like soft, like it's glow in the dark material kind of color. But the color's not wildly different. It's kind of like if you mix all these colors together, you might get something more like this if it wasn't a swirl pattern. Anyway, so there's jade. This one here is mint blue. So this is an Eco T. So it's like triangular instead of hexagonal. And the grip is ever so slightly different. But anyway, it is a little bit more of a blue. But, if you squinted real hard, you would probably maybe mistake one for the other. So anyway, that one is what that looks like. And then this one doesn't really look that close, but I wanted to give you some difference here. Pastel blue, that's what this one is. And then last but not least, we have turquoise, which looks really similar to Persian green, slightly darker maybe. But anyway, if you like these kind of lighter greens, you got a lot of options here over the years. But the Amazonite one does stand out a little bit because of that pattern. So I don't know. I'm hoping that TWSBI does this more because it would be really cool to see a lot more swirl patterns with TWSBIs. And they've done obviously like a lot of colors. So, I'm really curious to hear what you all think of this, how everybody responds, how many of them sell, because then TWSBI would be incentivized to make other types of, swirly pens. So there you go. Hopefully that's good for you. If you like the Eco, you're going to like this pen too. All right. So that's all the official pen business that we have here. I don't have a ton of adventures to share, mostly because this is a very busy logistical time of year for the business and for my family. Lots of family engagements, social activities, school is wrapping up. So there's all kinds of stuff with that, with the kids, lots of shopping, lots of wrapping, lots of cleaning up the house. It's a very busy time. I don't tell you all because you're probably in a similar boat. So that stuff's like kind of boring and not really interesting to share, so much. And be like, oh yeah, I went to the dump and got groceries and, that's what I'm spending a lot of my time doing. But it is really busy. So some of the more interesting parts, my daughter, Ellie, she's going to be turning 13 very soon. So I will now have 2 teenagers. And I'm kind of like, when did this happen? Because I remember my kids being very small and little and cute, and now they're older. And Joseph will be getting his learner's permit next summer, and my daughter's a teenager, and I'm just like, okay, time waits for no one. And I look in the mirror and I'm like, yeah, okay, this tracks. I'm looking older. Anyway, that's happening. No existential crisis happening at all. But anyway, it's awesome having a kid whose birthday is really close to Christmas. As some of you may know, it just makes everything so exciting. Yeah. Anyway, and then we did put up our Christmas tree. It was like a me and Ellie thing, like a little father-daughter thing. So that was kind of fun. Put on Charlie Brown Christmas and just kind of did that. Very nostalgic. We have a tree though that is one of these trees that has like flocking, and so it looks like snow, and it's got glitter. It looks really cool. It does sparkle a lot, but that glitter gets everywhere. We bought the tree it was like a COVID thing. We were at home. We were like, let's get a nicer tree with a fancier tree. We're like, yeah, it'll have glitter, but whatever. I honestly don't mind the glitter, but it does end up where like the month of December, there's glitter all over the house because the tree is just shedding glitter. At least I don't have a cat or anything. That would be even crazier probably. I would just have a glittery cat everywhere. But anyway, the tree looks really nice. We like it. So that's a thing. And then I took my kids bowling. We've not done a ton of bowling, but my daughter's been asking about doing it a lot. And we we don't live that close to a bowling alley, so it's kind of a trip, and we're usually tired and busy and stuff like that. So I was just like, it was like a Sunday after dinner kind of a thing. And I was like, there's no way the bowling alley is going to be open on a Sunday night. Sure enough, they're open until 11 p.m. on a Sunday. And I was like, who is bowling on a Sunday night? And then I was like, oh, we are. We're people going bowling. It wasn't crazy busy or anything like that. But we went, bowled a couple of games. Kids had a good time. So that was cool. We used bumpers. I kind of asked the kids, I was like, hey, do you guys want to use bumpers? And they were like, and Joseph, was like, no, I don't really know. And I was like, let's just use bumpers. It'll be more fun. We're not trying to be prideful here. None of us really bowl regularly. It's just, we're going to just get discouraged just getting gutter balls the whole time. And we used bumpers and it was a lot more fun. So I am not ashamed to use bumpers at all. I score more pins. I don't have as many bragging rights, but who really cares anyway? I don't bowl a lot. So of course I'm not going to be very good. Anyway, that happened. So that's what the Goulet family's up to. It's a crazy time of year, but we're having a good time. Just want to wrap this thing up. Just want to thank you all for watching. Leave me some feedback. Let me know how I'm doing, answers to the questions. I'll share it, on here. Please ask more questions because I need more questions to keep this thing going. I will say, just logistically, I'm going to be shooting one of these next week. And then I got 2 weeks off, Christmas and New Year's, taking a little break, spending family time. We'll have other videos to post, but I won't be doing a Q&A. So get all those good questions in now. And then after that, I won't see you again until next year in January. So go ahead and do that. And then I got a fun fact for you to leave off for the day. This is a time of year when, a lot of us are shopping. A lot of us are handling various receipts and things like that. So I just thought, where did receipts come from? Like specifically, I started out with like, where did the concept of the gift receipt come from? But then it was like just receipts in general. Like, what is the history of receipts? Well, like anything else you dig, and there's more of a history than you realize. I did find this article that was pretty comprehensive, and I'm basically going to reference this article, so you check it out yourself. Give them credit. This is the American Numismatic Society, an article called "A Brief History of the Receipt." So couldn't be more SEO optimized, huh? So let's do that. Let's talk about this. So as it turns out, some of the oldest preserved writings that we have are actually receipts. Proto-cuneiform tablets dating back 5,000 plus years ago in places like Mesopotamia were basically receipts. And then the ancient Egyptians were some of the first to provide written records of official documents to its citizens. So essentially in Mesopotamia, you had these merchant traders who were, keeping track of their inventory and the purchases. And, especially if things were going to be coming a long distance and all that, they needed to keep track of these physical goods that they had and the money that was exchanged. So those were some of the historically older things that we have that are documented and actually kind of tell an interesting story of what the society was like and what was happening and, where trade was happening and all that. That really kicked up though with the Egyptians. So the Egyptians, went to not only keeping records of things, but actually providing records to its citizens for tax purposes and things like that. They would do that kind of impromptu with whatever like broken pottery and stuff like that they had. But that papyrus is obviously they more popularized through the Egyptians. They used a lot of written records with papyrus. And that's when things really started to kick up in terms of, keeping records of things. Maybe they kept records in other ways and it just didn't hold up in a way that we were able to see it now. But we have a lot of old, what's it called? Papyrus, with receipts and tax records and stuff like that. So that's kind of interesting. And then, of course, I'm going to jump thousands of years ahead in time, but they've evolved from like these tablets and carvings to then, handwritten stuff on, papyrus or, like calf skin or like these very organic materials that are a lot to produce and kind of expensive. So then, you reach more of the like medieval times and especially the times when like the printing press comes out and paper becomes more of a thing, it really just kicks up the records. And then you went to like handwriting and then you go to like typewriters and other things like that to then, printers like thermal printers and all that. And then purely digital, which is what we have now today a lot of times. But it's interesting because the essence of these receipts has remained pretty unchanged So I'm going to quote the article directly here because they sum it up well. Though they might take any number of possible forms, most receipts these days preserve their early modern form. The vendor's name at the top, separate columns for items and prices, culminating in a total typically at the bottom right. Though the earliest receipts were paragraphs, the advent of double-entry bookkeeping in the Middle Ages fundamentally changed the way we think that accounts should look. Thus, even as we take full advantage of our technological advancement, we preserve part of the long history of receipts, even to today. So, I don't know. Can you make receipts interesting? Maybe not, but I tried. I thought that was fun. So, anyway, hope you enjoyed this one. I will see you next week. Hope you are enjoying your holiday season, and right on.